Why work at McDonald's for 15 bucks an hour when you can get awesome health insurance as a welder and make 70 large, right, in Philadelphia? What a great alternative. I think we have to do a better job of pitching our wonderful attributes, and we have a killer story. It's on us to explain it.
Hey, Drew, welcome to the Manufacturing Report podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite. Really appreciate it, Scott.
Of course. I've been a big fan of your company, you personally, your point of view for a number of years. So it's a real pleasure to have the chance to share a bit of that with our audience today. And I'm grateful because I know you're busy.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Before we get into Marlin Wire and the other companies that you have acquired, let's hear a bit about the early Drew. I know you went to Dickinson and to Tulane for an MBA. What were your passions, both in college and then when you were first starting out in a career?
So my first job out of college, I worked in banking, and it was a debacle because all the bankers were always like, no, don't lend money to the entrepreneur. It's too risky. And so I was not a good fit for banking personally. Bankers are very important because they lend us money so that we can buy factories and so that we could buy equipment. So they're important to the ecosystem and we appreciate them. However, me personally, I'm very entrepreneurial. I'm very excited about America. I want to grow. I want to hire talent. I want to take it to the next level. And you need bankers to help you get there, but me being a banker wasn't a good fit. The first acquisition we made in manufacturing was Marlin Steel, and that was in 1998. It was a small factory, 3,000 square feet, 30-year-old factory. They made bagel baskets for little bagel shops all throughout America.
Yeah.
And it was a very good business. For 30 years, they focused on this niche. And I thought, I'm going to buy this business and I'm going to do it for 30 years myself. And I was content with that plan. And then we had two terrible things occur.
Yeah.
The first one was we got inundated with Chinese imports that devastated the business model. So we're selling bagel baskets for ballpark 12 bucks a basket to Einstein Bagels, Manhattan Bagels, Boo Bagers, all the bagel shops. That math worked. We would pay $7 in steel. We only bought American steel, and we would weld it. We would pay a 401k. We would pay rent. We would pay for chrome plating, etc. with the $5, and we would sell it for 12. And that math worked.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, China started importing baskets into New York for $6 a basket, cheaper than the cost of steel. Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm paying $7 to buy steel and then selling it for 12, the math doesn't work if your competition is dumping and dropping it into Manhattan delivered for $6.
Right. And just so our audience knows, this has been validated. This dumping has been validated in case after case, which industries or companies have brought. I will say these anti-dumping countervailing duty cases, very expensive for a company to file. So there's a lot of barriers to entry for small and mid-sized manufacturers. And our trade policy was working against you guys as well.
Horrible situation. So here we are, this tiny little factory in Brooklyn, New York, right? And, my whole business model is upside down, right? Because I thought for 30 years I was going to, sell baskets for 12 and try to live off of the little in between. But it's upside down. And I'm fighting against the Chinese government, right? And they're despoiling the environment. Our chrome plater in Queens is following all the EPA rules. The water coming in actually has more chrome particles than the effluent he's pumping out because he's so clean, right?
Mm-hmm.
And our competition has subsidized steel, which is untenable. Our competition gets export subsidies.
Yep.
Our competition gets labor subsidies. Our competition might even be using concentration camp labor for all I know, right?
Yeah.
So how do we compete with this? It's just not right. And just like you were saying, the legal fees, because we did inquire, the legal fees was more than our revenue
Yeah.
to fight the Chinese deluge into our country. So they planned this, that they were going to just take over this market, and we didn't have a shot because I didn't have the cash to pay the legal fees to fight. It's all stacked up against
Yeah.
small manufacturers.
Absolutely.
It's stacked up against the American worker, and it's
Yeah.
just not tenable.
So
So
so let me ask you, Drew, you know, over this period of time, this China shock, right? I mean, there were tens of thousands of factories that went out of business. And then there were others that made the decision just to, keep the brand but move the production to China. Um, you made it, right? So tell us that story.
so I love my people. We have fabulous people, but we just had a lousy market, right? So what do? And by the way, I'm all in. I took every penny I had to buy this company. So it's not
Wow.
like, I mean, if we were to go bankrupt, I'd be out on the street, right? So we had to find an alternative path. It's just nobody like sends you the message, here's the path. We got a fortuitous phone call from an engineer at Boeing that needed a basket that actually looks similar to a bagel basket. He needed a slightly different size. He needed it quick, right? And obviously he's Boeing and needs good quality. So this is the epiphany I made when I got this phone call. I have to sell quality engineered quick. If I could do that, I could beat China. I could navigate this lane. I could save my employees and we could grow and thrive. So that was the pivot. That was the demarcation from utter abject failure, hemorrhaging cash, losing money month in, month out, losing all my savings, right? Literally putting things on credit card to make the company survive, okay? To, oh, wait a second, we got a viable path. So now my goal, now my focus, now my mantra is quality engineered quick. And that's what we pivoted the company to. And that's how we saved the company. So rather than making commodity bagel baskets trying to fight China, we moved into this highly engineered, high quality, engineered, highly custom product,
Yeah.
shipping quick.
Yeah. Okay. So you make this pivot, and this occurred when, Drew?
2001, 2002.
Yeah, right. So right when all the China stuff was coming online. Okay. So you're a survivor. You've pivoted to this highly engineered stuff. So there were obviously a lot of shocks in the economy along the way. But you've managed to not only hold your own, but grow stuff. Why don't you take us through that journey?
So when I first bought the company, the day I bought the company, all the employees were paid minimum wage. I'm talking about the factory workers,
Yeah.
minimum wage. Nobody owned a car except I did. Nobody had health insurance except for me. Okay, the day I bought the company, the health insurance plan is you go to the emergency room.
Right.
The day I bought the company, the retirement plan was Social Security for the employees. Fast forward, we went from 3,000 square feet to today we have 200,000 square feet.
Mm.
We went from minimum wage to now our guys are making 60, 70, 80. We have some guys making $100,000 on the factory room floor.
Wow.
We pay really great. We have a wonderful 401k plan with a huge match. Fabulous health insurance. They're on the same plan my family's on. My kids are on. Their kids are on. It's great health insurance. So what goes around comes around. You take
Yeah.
great care of the team. They're really focused on quality. They're really focused in shipping on time. And success begets success. And now we have 115 employees. We went from 18 employees to 115 employees. And the thing I'm most proud about is our safety record. So our safety record, the day I bought the company, we had 2 guys without eyes and we had 2 guys without fingers. Okay. Fast forward, our Baltimore plant has over 1,500 days without a safety incident. Our prior
Mm.
record was 1,800 days, and our prior record before that was 2,500 days.
Wow.
And our Indiana plant has over 2,200 days without a safety incident. And our Michigan plant, which we just opened up recently, has over 300 days without a safety incident.
Mm.
So we are focused like a laser beam on safety. And it's so very important. And again, this is such a contrast with how an American factory treats their talent versus a Chinese factory.
Yeah,
Chinese factory, if a
absolutely.
guy loses his finger, he's fired, right? At America, we really coddle our team and are really focused on safety.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it pays off, which is great. So your market today, again, engineered quality products, I have to imagine it's expanded beyond Boeing.
Yes. Yes. So Boeing was the first client. I mean, when we got Boeing, they were not a half of 1% of sales, right?
Yeah,
And 99% of my clients like saying, wait a second, I'm going to buy these Chinese baskets for 6. Why buy them
right.
from Drew for 12? That's madness. So we were losing clients hand over fist. Anyway, so now we're into medical devices
Mhm.
where people appreciate quality, people appreciate on-time delivery, and they appreciate the innovation of clever engineering. We're into aerospace baskets, carts, and racks, and we're also doing a lot of food processing. That's in the Baltimore factory. In our Indiana factory, we're making point-of-purchase displays, and we're making guards, wire guarding.
You did bring up China, and even though you keep quite busy, managing all these enterprises and you're clearly very, employee-focused as well, you've been a policy advocate, and you've seen it differently, I think, than some other, like, larger manufacturers that might have a global footprint. So what got you involved in policy, in the first place? Because I know some factory owners look at that and they're like, "There's no way. Why would I do that?" But you leaned into it.
I'm all in on American manufacturing, and I'm all in on buying American steel. And we got to protect these critical industry so that, God forbid, we get into an altercation with another country, that we could be self-sufficient, right? I mean, we don't even make a 0.5% of our boats right now. I mean,
Yeah, that's right.
my factory is 3 miles away from the port in Baltimore, where we were making a boat every 3 days during World War II, every
Yeah.
3 days. And now we don't even make a 0.5% of the boats. Okay. We can't control our destiny if we're not making our own pharmaceuticals. We cannot control our destiny if we have to buy steel from other ports, other countries. They're going to cut us off if, God forbid, bad things happen, right? So we have to be self-sufficient. Now, I'm not saying we have to buy everything domestically. But I'm saying we should have critical elements made here. 80% of our silicon chips, our semiconductor chips, are made in Taiwan. This is madness.
Yeah.
This is insane. We have to make sure that critical manufacturing industries are made here in America by Americans.
If you can remember back, like, the attitudes, this has been my experience, the attitudes of policymakers throughout the 2000s, the early 2000s, it was much different than it is today, I think. Have you seen that evolution? Because it seems like the message that you've been delivering, I think, is finally catching on.
Well, dear God, why did it take so long? But yes, I do think we're seeing a transition. We've been buying American steel for 28 years, right? I'm an American bigot. We're only going to buy local. I can't believe it's taken this long for the rest of America to kind of catch up to the obvious. If you make everything abroad, well, then all the middle class jobs are going to go abroad. Well, where does that leave us? Well, that leaves us with barista jobs, I suppose, right? We're going to have a bunch of jobs where people are not getting full-time employment,
Right.
and they're not going to be able to afford to pay them health insurance, and they got to pay them minimum wage. I mean, what kind of living is that, right? We got to create middle class jobs. We got to create avenues for our locals to have an opportunity to get in the middle class. To be able to afford a car, to buy a house, the American dream. That's intrinsic to a good society, I believe. And we were crushing it for decades, and we lost the thread, and it was it was a setback. I'm hoping policymakers now get it. By the way, this is this is Republicans and Democrats. I mean, I'm not
Yes,
talking
that's
about
right.
just one.
Yeah,
But I'm not one party or the other party. I'm saying, hey, we're in a situation where we have this should be a bipartisan thesis. Hey, we want to grow the middle class. We need great manufacturing jobs that are paid 80, 90, $100,000 a year, created and thriving. It's so important, and it's about time.
yeah. Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about tariffs lately, and there have been, I mean, we talked about those anti-dumping, countervailing duty cases, and so there have been tariffs put in place on like imported steel for a long time, right? So there has been some of that, but it's only been, I think, since probably Trump's first term where you saw more widespread utilization of tariffs, and you saw Biden generally kind of continue that, more or less. And then Trump comes in and there's a bolder tariff approach. Now, if you read a newspaper or you turn on the TV, everybody is like, hair on fire about this. You're a business guy. You've lived through this experience. Where do you hope all the tariff policy lands, Drew?
Two elements here. First thing is, I think we should have reciprocity. I mean, we got to be mano a mano. We got to be level, right? And right now, it's like I'm a Ravens guy. I'm a Baltimore Ravens guy. Our factory's in Baltimore. The HQ, that's where I'm based out of, is in Baltimore. And our arch rivals, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay.
Yeah.
And the way the system is set up now, every time the Ravens are playing the Steelers, before the referee calls the whistle, blows the whistle to start the game starts at 21-0 Steelers versus the Ravens 0. That's how it's set up now for the American factory worker.
Yeah.
That's absurd,
Yeah.
right? We have to have reciprocity with Europe, with Mexico, with Canada. Otherwise, we're not going to trade with you, right? Getting you reciprocity. My guys are so smart, and we have such a great system here in America. We'll crush it if we're 0-0. Now, if you're not going to be 0-0 with us, well, then I think we should have tariffs on you, right? Because you're not playing fair with us. You want access to the best market in the world. We are the best market in the world. We're the richest. We're a huge market. We're easy to work with in terms of, all 50 states, transporting things within our country. We're a fabulous market to be in. You want access to this market, you got to pay tariffs, unless you're reciprocal. Now, I have a different attitude with countries that despoil the environment, that are using concentration camp labor, that steal my intellectual property, right? That ain't fair. You
Yeah.
can't subsidize the steel, subsidize the exports. That's not right. You should have a higher tariff. If we could have this level setting, it's going to be so good for the American worker. And we're going to create a lot of $80,000 a year jobs. And we're going to have situations where we're not getting 80% of our semiconductors from Taiwan.
Yeah.
And we're going to have, boats made in America again, like we should.
Absolutely. So you raised, countries that don't have the right standards in addition to the reciprocity, and I'm just going to call one out, China, which is the obvious one and the largest one and the one that's caused, I think, the biggest disruption. Um, do you, and opinions are mixed on this. I'm just going to say, can you see a scenario where Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party kind of says, okay, we're going to start paying better. We're going to stop despoiling the environment. We're going to stop manipulating our currency. We're going to stop intellectual property theft, and we're going to play by the rules after kind of 25 years of not?
Well, I hope our policymakers have that kind of discipline to get them to do that. Otherwise, they should not pay. They should be paying exorbitant tariffs. That's their choice, to my take. If we continue the high tariff policy, they're going to lose something like 100 million or 200 million factory worker jobs. That's untenable for the CCP, right? those factory workers are going to be disappointed with that plan,
Yeah.
right? When they get laid off,
Right.
right? And we're going to want changes,
Yeah.
okay? And the CCP is going to have to adjust for 200 million people looking for jobs, okay? That is going to happen if our policymakers stand strong and they negotiate and protect American factory workers. That is critical to me. And I think that's imperative for our future.
Yeah, agree. One of the things that's been in the headlines, Drew, is that there's been all sorts of uncertainty and paralysis because of the changing nature of the trade policy, which will reach an endpoint, right? It is going to reach an endpoint. But I'm wondering because I've been traveling around a bit, and I know you have too. Is it really the way that the media is characterizing it? Because it seems to me that a lot of factories are doing stuff. A lot of people are hiring or trying to hire. I mean, what's been your impression? Because I know you've been out and about.
Sure. So look, my take is t-shirt prices are going to go up. Okay. I mean, there's going to be certain things that are going to go
Sure.
higher because of
Yeah.
tariffs, right? But there's an alternative theme going on here is that people are saying, wait a second, let's start building in America, right? Let's start thinking about putting that factory in the USA, which means that you have to hire plumbers, you have to hire a roofing company, you have to hire contractors to build it, right? And then you're going to have to hire factory workers to be inside it. And then you have to create a supply chain to feed that factory. This is really good for our country. And I'm thrilled with that. There's a tax bill also going through Congress right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Uh,
Let's talk
and
about that.
and
Yeah.
that tax bill goes through, that new factory is going to be completely 100% expensible right off. So big companies from overseas, they're saying to themselves, well, should I build the next factory in Germany? Should I build the next factory in Mexico? Should I build the next factory in China? That's crazy. Let's build the next factory in America. People are going to start coalescing around that theme, which is so good for the American factory worker. It's a blessing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going in our direction. The media is keying in on a lot of fear, and they're grabbing some poll numbers. A lot of the poll numbers are based also on people's political identities. I
Absolutely.
think I think you should focus in on investment.
Mhm.
And if you look at investment in factories, it's surging. Private investment is surging. The GDP numbers that just came out recently shows a surge in private investment. Now, there's some areas where the blended rate impacted the GDP, which is people
Absolutely.
like pulling in
Right.
a lot of imports right away before they
Right.
know the tariffs are going to come in.
Right.
But there's another important number, which is private investment surging. That's because people like me are leaning in and they're buying a lot of equipment because they're enthusiastic about the future. They think good times are coming. And I'm more focused on people that write checks, right? They're putting their money where their mouth is, they're bellying up to the bar. That's a more important indicator than like the Michigan survey on consumers,
Absolutely.
right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
focus on where people are putting bucks.
Yeah.
That's where you should focus.
The hard data rather than the soft data. I totally agree.
The
Yeah.
recent tax bill, I mean, if that goes through, and it's not a done deal, right? If it goes through, it is going to be very good for the American factory worker, because what's going to happen is a lot of factories are going to lean in. Animal spirits will be unleashed. There will be a tremendous growth in the appetite for people like myself and foreigners to build in our country. The positive reverberations that are going to happen in our nation because of this tax bill is going to be extraordinary. And buckle up. It's going to be good. And with the reciprocal tax, the tariffs, a positive tax plan, lower punishing regulations. I'm not saying despoiling the environment. I eat crabs out of the Chesapeake Bay. That bay's got to be pristine so I can continue. That's my favorite food group. Okay. I'm from Baltimore, right? I'm telling you, it is going to be a glorious time. We're going to see the reindustrialization of the American economy, and it's going to be a very positive lift in our nation.
The other narrative is that, look, even if this was successful, there's no one who wants to work in manufacturing. Yeah, this is the other media narrative that I see a lot, or people have a hard time. You own and operate several facilities, at least 3. What is it like recruiting and retaining employees, and what do you see is the path to, like, scaling this up? Because I assume you don't agree with that narrative that the media has going on.
It's a challenge. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and poop
Yeah,
this. I mean,
fair enough.
recruiting talent right now is a challenge. And getting great people is a challenge. We're going to have to dig deep. We're going to have to make it work. We're going to have to extol the good things going on in manufacturing. It's on us. So we have to talk about it's interesting work. It's creative work. It's work that's now well lit, and it's safe,
Mhm.
and it's novel, and it's a good, smart group of people, and it pays great, and the benefits are wonderful. Much better than housekeeping, much
Yeah,
better than restaurant work, much better than barista work. You know, those we have to make a compelling case. Part of the challenge is a lot of guidance counselors, a lot of principals, a lot of teachers push people into college, and college is a good avenue for many people.
certainly.
It's
Right.
a good avenue. However, there's some people, it would be better for them to become a plumber, a welder, right? You know, that is an excellent avenue. You can make real coin on that. There was a front page article in the Philadelphia Inquirer. High school kids in Philadelphia
I
are
saw
getting
how.
offered jobs for $70,000 for
Yeah,
welding. What an awesome thing, right? Why work at McDonald's for 15 bucks an hour when you can get awesome health insurance as a welder and make 70 large, right? In Philadelphia. What a great alternative. Then go to college and then get all kinds of student debt,
yeah,
right? So I think we have to do a better job of pitching our wonderful attributes, and we have a killer story. It's on us to explain it. By
yeah.
the way, there's another avenue that we haven't considered. I was in our Indiana plant and meeting with a young woman at our factory that was just promoted to running our three-dimensional bender,
Mm,
and she served time
yeah,
and she got released, and we gave her a second chance,
yeah,
right? And she's fabulous. We
yeah.
think she's doing great. Amazing work ethic, amazing attitude, and she's smart and she's pushing hard and she's trying to change her life. She just got her driver's license back, and you know what? We promoted her to run the 3D bender, right?
It's
And
fantastic.
and and because of this, we're gonna put her on an airplane. First time she's ever been on an airplane to go to a training class, right? This is really we're creating an American dream for her,
Yeah.
right? So we're gonna have to look at avenues that maybe we didn't look at in the past.
Mhm.
People that are trying to start a second life. So it's going to be a mix of a couple different angles, but I think a lot of the newspaper, a lot of the media has been saying there's no people out there. Well, we'll find the people. Remember,
Mhm.
only 62% of Americans are working. There's 38%
Yeah,
of them that are not on the employment rolls, right?
right.
I'm talking about able-bodied people that are out there in the labor force, right, that
Yeah,
are viable for the labor force. We got to get that 38% and find those people, sift through them, and get them into jobs.
yeah. Yeah, and in your case, Drew, where do you see the skilling up occurring? Do you bring people on and do that? Do you expect them to walk in the door and have a certain set of skills? Or I guess what are you looking for? Because other people have cited that as another barrier as well.
So, both is the answer. So we
Yeah.
we we dream about finding a skilled TIG welder or a skilled MIG welder. That's a fabulous thing in my, because we make wire baskets, we
That's
make
right.
metal
Yeah.
carts, we need welders bad. So that to us is something that we love and embrace. Unfortunately, as we've discussed, it's hard to find those people. So in many cases, what we do is we hire people for initiative and drive and earnestness and good character to be machine operators. And then when we feel comfortable that they have the chops, we'll train them and, like you said, upskill them. And they get more money, they get more responsibilities, more duties, and success begets success for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's two paths. One is, the delicious, oh my gosh, this guy's an amazing TIG welder, bring him on right away. And hey, you got a machine operator, we're going to train him up.
Yeah. Yeah, that all makes sense. One last question for you, and this is something, 'cause I've had the good fortune of talking to hundreds of people like yourself who have built, businesses or grown them in the United States. I know there are a lot of people out there who have ideas about products and goods to manufacture in the US. What is your advice to them on how to get started? Because these folks approach me, they're like, "There's so many barriers, X, Y, and Z." What are a couple nuggets of advice you'd give someone who has a great idea for a product or good, and how to get that done in America?
There's entities like the Manufacturing Extension Partnership
Yeah.
that are pretty knowledgeable about local companies. There's one in each of the 50 states. There's actually a Fritz Holling from South Carolina, who's a senator who created this program. They're called Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. You can Google it. And they are very knowledgeable about local factories that have the capacity and capabilities to make these components for you. So I would highly recommend interfacing with them. Another one is the National Association of Manufacturers.
Mhm.
They have 14,000 members, and surely many of the 14,000 members could assist. So those would be two ideas to quickly find a competent, vetted entity that is well appointed to
Yeah.
make these parts for you.
Sure. I also saw, and I think she was in your factory, that the Small Business Administration, SBA, and Administrator Kelly Loeffler. It seems like they've been upgrading things recently to try to connect people with capital and also with suppliers. Yeah.
She was a fabulous initiative where she's doubling how much the SBA will lend for manufacturing.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
And this is really important because when manufacturers have access to capital, they could belly up to the bar and buy technology. When they buy technology, the first thing they have to do is hire really good people to run that technology. And if it's expensive, you want to run it 3 shifts a day. So you're going to hire 3 people. And then you need to hire a bunch of people to process that technology, whatever it is. So let me give you an example. We're gearing up to buy an American-made laser. They're $1.2 million. What does that mean? Well, that means we're going to have to hire 3 people to run it, day shift, night shift, weekend shift, right? And then we're going to have to hire probably 9 people to process all the stuff coming through there, right? Plus, we're going to order a lot more boxes from our local box company. We're going to order a lot more pallets from our local pallet company. We're going to be electropolishing a lot more things at our electropolisher because we farm that out. So the ripple effect is so tremendous. So when the SBA doubles how much they'll lend money to a company, all of a sudden, many more companies could be more aggressive. And then the ripple effect to hire great talent to run that technology is very positive. Another benefit is all of a sudden, we're more competitive against cheap Chinese imports. We're more competitive against dumping from overseas. And we could be more viable and a better chance for our talent to have a long-term career. If you have good tools, you have to give your employees extraordinary tools to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. You have met with leaders of, I mean, the leaders of both parties. So to be very clear, at the highest levels, and this is an apolitical question, but do you think that Washington finally gets it, that we have to have a strong manufacturing base in the country, and that it takes policy? It's not just the invisible hand, right? It takes a little policy to make sure that we have what we need for our economic and national security.
So I've had the privilege of meeting with President Bush the younger, President Obama, President Biden, President Trump, and it's an honor. And in each case, I've talked with them about the importance of small and medium-sized manufacturing. because I believe that is the number one way we can grow manufacturing jobs, because in general, they build in America, right? They don't look as globally, right? And they are very focused on creating jobs for the locals. And we have to create policies that are very conducive to making them thrive. And if we can create an ecosystem for these factories to grow and prosper, they're going to hire a gang of people, and those are great jobs. So that's been my mantra to when I meet with these politicians. I press them hard on this. I think Washington is getting the picture that we don't have a reciprocal situation, right? When we export to Germany, uh, our baskets are at tariffed $129. When the German company copies my design and ships it into America, it's a $1.25.
Wow.
That's not fair to the American worker. When you wonder why aren't there more American factory workers and why there are so many German factory workers, well, it's because we can't ship to them, because the German consumer says, I might as well get and make it local, right? Buy from a local team. I mean, there's a reason why when you go to Berlin, you don't see a lot of General Motor cars. You don't see a lot of Fords. But when you come to America, you see a lot of Volkswagens, you see a lot of BMWs, you see a lot of Mercedes-Benz. Same thing with, by the way, with Tokyo, okay?
Yeah.
When you go to Tokyo, you see no Fords, you see no Chryslers, you see no General Motors. But when you come to America, you happen to see a lot of Toyotas, you see a lot of Hondas, you see a lot of Subarus, okay? That is because of an inequity in our tariff structure. It's not right what we have let other countries do. Now, right after the World War II, we gave them a solid,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
And rebuild their economies, okay? But you know what? That war ended a long, long time ago. They've had enough time to catch up, and it's just not fair anymore to the American factory worker. And we got to bring back the American factory, and we got to make it level. We make it level, we're going to thrive. We're going to hire a lot of talent.
That's Drew Greenblatt. Thank you so much for joining us on the Manufacturing Report today.
Thank you. We really appreciate the invite, Scott.